My son told everyone I was retired, out of touch, and too old to understand how business worked anymore. I ignored it. Then one morning, a bank manager placed a file in front of me and showed me documents connected to my paid-off house. Documents. I had never signed documents that could have cost me everything. That was the day I stopped being my family's safety net. But before I tell you what was inside that file, let me take you back to how it all started. I am 68 years old, a widower and a retired contractor. For over 40 years, I built houses, repaired buildings, and worked long days in every kind of weather imaginable. My wife Linda used to joke that I spent more time carrying lumber than sitting down. 8 years ago, I lost her. Since then, life became quieter. The mortgage was paid off. The house was mine. My bills were manageable. Spent my mornings drinking coffee on the porch and my afternoons working on small projects around the house. It wasn't an exciting life, but it was peaceful. At least, it used to be. My son Ryan and his wife Nicole owned a small marketing company. Every year they seemed to be one step away from success. And every year they seemed to need something from me. Sometimes it was money, sometimes it was equipment, sometimes it was my truck. The requests always came with promises: we'll pay you back. This is only temporary. We just need a little help. At first, I believed them. After all, helping your children is what parents do, or at least that's what I told myself. One Sunday evening, I drove over to Ryan's house for dinner. The table was full of food, and Ryan spent most of the meal talking about a new business opportunity. According to him, this project was going to change everything. New clients, new contracts, new growth. I listened quietly while he explained his plans. When he finally paused, I said something simple: just be careful taking on too much debt. Growth is good, but only when the foundation is solid. Ryan laughed. Not because I told a joke, because he thought what I said was funny. Dad, he said, shaking his head, things don't work like they did 30 years ago. A few people around the table chuckled. Nicole smiled into her wine glass. Nobody defended me, nobody even looked. Uncomfortable, I sat there holding my fork and suddenly felt like a stranger, not because they disagreed with me, because they dismissed. There is a difference. For the first time, I realized my experience no longer had value to them. The only thing they valued was what I could provide. After that dinner, I started noticing things I had ignored. Before, Ryan treated my truck like it belonged to him. Sometimes I would wake up and find it gone, no phone, call, no text message, no request, just gone. Hours later, it would reappear in my driveway. The gas tank would be nearly empty. The seats would be dirty. Occasionally, there would be a new scratch on the side. Whenever I mentioned it, Ryan acted annoyed. One afternoon, I asked him to refill the tank before bringing it back. He looked at me like I had insulted him. Seriously? Yes, I answered calmly. He rolled his eyes. Fine. That one word told me everything. In his mind, asking permission wasn't necessary anymore. My truck had quietly become part of his life. The same thing happened with money. Nicole handled that side of things. She was always polite, always smiling, always prepared. Every few weeks she would arrive with another stack of papers, business applications, credit forms, loan documents. She would sit at my kitchen table and slide them toward me. We just need your help getting approved. The first few times, I signed. Then I started reading more carefully, and the numbers kept getting bigger. One afternoon, she brought another packet. Flipped through the pages. There were guarantees, liabilities, responsibilities I wasn't comfortable taking on. I closed the folder and pushed it back. I'm not signing this. Nicole's smile disappeared. Immediately, Ryan leaned back in his chair and sighed. The room became quiet. Then Nicole spoke. Family should support family. I had heard those words many times before, but something about the way she said them felt different, less like a belief, more like a weapon. I looked at both of them. Family should also respect family. Neither of them responded. A few months later, things got worse. My sister celebrated her 70th birthday at a local restaurant. Most of the family was there. The conversation was light. Everyone was laughing. Then someone complimented my house. They mentioned how well I had maintained it over the years. Ryan raised his glass. Well, it's basically mine one day anyway. The table erupted in laughter. Even Nicole laughed. I forced a smile, but inside, something tightened. Not because of the joke, because it didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like ownership, like my house had already become his in his mind. The conversation moved on. Nobody thought twice about it, but I did. And a few weeks later, something happened that made that comment impossible to forget. Strange letters started arriving at my house. Some were addressed to Ryan. Some came from financial institutions I didn't recognize. Others looked like lender notices. At first, I assumed it was a mailing mistake. When Ryan stopped by one afternoon, I handed him the envelopes. He barely looked at them. Just business paperwork. His answer came too quickly, too smoothly. I watched him shove the letters into his bag. Something felt wrong. I couldn't explain it. But for the first time in a long time, I felt uneasy. Then more letters arrived. Different companies, different envelopes, same feeling. And one morning, after finding another notice in my mailbox, I gathered every letter I had saved into a neat stack. I put them in my truck, started the engine, and drove straight to the bank. I had no idea that before the day was over, I would discover a betrayal far bigger than anything I had imagined. The next morning, I walked into the bank carrying a stack of envelopes and a feeling I couldn't quite explain. Wasn't angry, I wasn't scared, I just wanted answers. The bank manager greeted me politely and invited me into a small office. I placed the letters on his desk and explained that they kept arriving at my house. Some were addressed to my son, Ryan. Others referenced accounts and lenders I didn't recognize. He started reviewing them one by one. At first, everything seemed routine. Then his expression changed. He stopped talking. He picked up one particular document and looked at it longer than the others. A few minutes later, he asked me a question that immediately made my stomach tighten. "Mr. Harrison, are you aware that your property has been listed in connection with a business loan?" I stared at him. "My property? Your home." For a second, I honestly thought there had been some kind of mistake. "There must be a misunderstanding," I said. "My house is paid off." The manager opened a file on his computer. Then he printed several pages and placed them in front of me. I looked down at the documents, my address, my property information, my home. Every page pointed back to the house I had spent decades paying for, the house Linda and I had built our lives in, the house that was supposed to be secure. The manager explained that the property had been presented as collateral during a large business financing application. I barely heard the rest. My eyes remained fixed on the paperwork. The room suddenly felt smaller, quieter. He kept speaking, but all I could think about was one question. How did Ryan have access to any of this? Then the answer came to me. Years ago, after my wife passed away, Ryan had helped me organize old files and legal documents, property records, tax paperwork, mortgage information, things I trusted him to help me sort through. At the time, I saw it as a son helping his father. Now I wasn't so sure. I left the bank carrying copies of everything. When I reached my truck, I sat behind the steering wheel without starting the engine. The parking lot was busy. People walked in and out of the building. Cars came and went. But I barely noticed any of it. For years, I had convinced myself Ryan was struggling. I told myself he was trying. I told myself every loan, every favor, every request came from necessity. Sitting there, I realized something painful. He had never been treating my help like a gift. He treated it like an entitlement. There is a huge difference between needing support and believing you automatically deserve someone else's resources. And for the first time, I saw the truth clearly. The truck, the money, the paperwork, the constant pressure, the jokes about my house. None of it had been accidental. Piece by piece, Ryan had stopped seeing boundaries. I wasn't his father anymore. I was a resource, a solution, a backup plan. The realization hurt more than the documents because documents can be fixed. Trust is harder to repair. That afternoon, I didn't call Ryan. I didn't call Nicole. I didn't start an argument. Instead, I called an attorney. By the end of the week, I was sitting across from him reviewing every piece of paperwork connected to the loan, and that was when we discovered something even worse. Something that completely changed the meaning of everything Ryan had told me. Over the past year, the business wasn't failing because of bad luck. The business wasn't struggling because times were hard. The money wasn't being used to save the company. As transaction records appeared on the screen, a completely different picture emerged. Luxury hotel, charges vacation packages, designer, furniture, expensive personal purchases, thousands of dollars spent on appearances. I stared at the records in disbelief. Ryan hadn't risked my home to save his business. He had risked my home to protect his lifestyle, and at that moment every excuse, every guilt trip, and every promise suddenly made perfect sense. Part 3. I sat in the attorney's office longer than I expected to. The papers were still spread across the desk, but my mind wasn't on them anymore. It was on Ryan, on every dinner I had shared with him, every time I handed him my keys. Every time I believed, this time it's different. The attorney finally broke the silence. Legally speaking, he said carefully, "This is serious fraud if your signature was forged or your identity was misused." I didn't respond right away, because something inside me still didn't want to accept the word fraud when it came to my own son. But denial doesn't survive paperwork, and paperwork doesn't lie. I left his office with copies of everything and a plan forming in my mind. Not emotional, not impulsive. Just clear. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting to Ryan. I was preparing for him. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that house file in the bank manager's hands. My home, my life, reduced to a line item in someone else's financial gamble. By morning, I made a decision. I called Ryan. He picked up on the third ring, sounding casual. Almost bored. "Hey, Dad, that word used to feel safe, now it felt heavy." "I need you to come to my house," I said calmly. "Why?" "I'm kind of busy." "It's important." There was a pause, then a sigh. "Fine, I'll swing by later." He arrived 2 hours later like nothing in the world had changed. Same posture, same confidence, same entitlement. Nicole was with him. She didn't even greet me properly, just walked inside like she owned the place already. I didn't offer them seats. For once, I didn't play the host. I placed the folder on the table. Ryan looked at it briefly. "What's this?" "Open it," I said. Nicole opened it instead. At first, her expression was neutral. Then she started reading, and I saw the exact moment everything shifted. Her eyes tightened, her smile disappeared, her hand stopped moving. Ryan noticed. "What is it?" he asked again, sharper this time. She didn't answer immediately, so I did. "The bank has my house listed as collateral for a loan I never agreed to." Silence. Not confusion, not surprise, silence. That comes when someone already knows the truth is coming. "That's impossible," Ryan finally said, but he didn't sound convinced. He sounded defensive. I nodded. Slowly. "That's what I thought, too." Nicole closed the folder. "Maybe there was a misunderstanding with paperwork," she said quickly, but her voice wasn't steady. I looked at her, then at him. "No," I said. "There wasn't." The room felt smaller again. Ryan exhaled sharply and rubbed his face. "This is being blown out of proportion." That sentence, that exact sentence, it told me everything I needed to know. Not, "I didn't do it." Not, "Let's fix." It just, "You're overreacting." I leaned back slightly. "My house is not a proportion." His eyes flicked up. For the first time, there was irritation. "Dad, we were under pressure. The business needed stability. We were going to fix everything once things turned around." "By using my house?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Nicole stepped in. "We didn't have a choice." That word again. Choice. They always said it like there were no alternatives in the world except the one that benefited them. I nodded slowly. "So you didn't have a choice?" I repeated, then I looked at Ryan. "But I did." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I had a choice to trust you," I said. "And I did." Repeatedly. The room went quiet again. This time, heavier. I pushed the second folder forward. This includes what the attorney found. Personal spending, luxury expenses, vacation charges, furniture, none of it went into saving your company. Nicole's face tightened immediately. Ryan didn't look at the documents. Already knew. That was the worst part. He already knew. You went through my accounts? He snapped. No, I said. The bank did. The attorney did. Because I asked questions. That hit differently. Questions, not accusations, not anger, just questions. And somehow, that was enough to expose everything. Ryan stood up. This is ridiculous. He started pacing. We've been building something for years. You don't understand how hard it is to run a business in this economy. I watched him carefully. Not as a father anymore, just as someone finally seeing a pattern clearly. Stop, I said quietly. He paused. I continued. This isn't about the economy. Silence. This isn't about pressure. Silence. Again. This is about trust. Nicole crossed her arms. You're really going to do this to your own family? There it was, the final weapon, guilt dressed up as morality. I looked at her calmly. No, I said. You already did it to me. That line hung in the air for the first time. Neither of them had a response ready. Because guilt doesn't work when the truth is visible. I slid another document forward. This is what my attorney is filing. Ryan looked down at it. His face changed. Not anger now, not frustration. Something closer to disbelief. You're suing us? I didn't answer immediately. Then I said the only thing left that was honest. I'm protecting what's left of my life. Silence again. But this silence was different. It wasn't confusion. It was realization. Nicole grabbed her bag. This is going to destroy everything. I nodded once. No, I said. Your choices did that, Ryan. Stared at me for a long moment, not speaking, not moving. Like he was trying to find the version of me that used to forgive everything, but that version wasn't in the room anymore. Finally, he spoke softer. So that's it? I met his eyes. That's it. They left without another word. No apology, no explanation, just distance. When the door closed, the house felt quieter than it ever had, but it wasn't emptiness, it was clarity. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. The legal process began. Accounts were frozen, documents were investigated, and slowly, the truth became undeniable. My name was removed from every unauthorized obligation. My house was protected, my financial identity restored. But the harder part wasn't legal, it was personal. Because silence from Ryan wasn't peace, it was absence. One evening, I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun go down over the same yard I had built with my own hands. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting to be needed, I was just there. And I realized something I should have understood long ago. Family is not defined by blood. It is defined by respect. Without respect, even love becomes a transaction, and I was no longer willing to trade my peace for someone else's comfort. Not anymore.